Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Zone Blitz. This is Vince, joined as always by my co-host Ashton Overholt. We're here to talk about college football, as always. Recapped a pretty good slate of Week 3 games a few days ago. Kind of did an instant reaction podcast. Now we want to preview the upcoming slate of Week 4 games. And first of all, I guess just to recap sort of our locks from a week ago, we always pick 5 games to watch, and then out of those 5, we pick 2 locks. Decent week for us last week as a whole. You went 2-0. I went 1-1. So if you would have just followed our bets, man, you would have made money last week. So, Ashton, who did you take last week? What were your locks?
Yeah, mine last week, I had Michigan State over Miami. That one obviously turned out to be a huge a huge success. And then we both had the game with Cincinnati covering against Indiana. That one was very much in doubt, really. All
Yeah,
game that did not look like a very good bet. And then since he pulls away at the end, lucky for us. So you had a rough one there, kind of a I don't you can't qualify it as a bad beat, but not like what
yeah,
Scott Van Pelt does. But to be up 21-3, you had Alabama getting, I think it was 14 and a half
yeah.
against Florida there, and to be up 21-3 and just to be rolling like they were, and yeah, just the total reversal that happened in that game was shocking, because that felt like a slam dunk, felt like it was going to be a perfect week for the podcast, perfect 4-0, but it was not to be. So hey, we're gonna give it another shot this week and see where it goes.
That's right. And for the season, I believe we are a combined 7-5. So decent week, decent season for us so far. We'll see what we can do. See if we can find some more winners for you guys out there, so you can put bread on your tables. I don't recommend actually betting on college football if you need it to put bread on your table. But anyway, beside the point. Anyway, so this upcoming slate of games for this week, I'll just kind of read over some of the notable games. And this is very subjective. Like, I feel like there's a couple really good games, and then there's a whole bunch kind of in that wherever you want to put them. Decent, not terrible, not awesome games. So I'll just read off some of the ones that stuck out to me, and then I'll turn it to you to tell us which 5 you picked out as your 5 games to watch. So we have Texas Tech at Texas, Missouri at Boston College, Notre Dame against Wisconsin in Chicago, LSU at Mississippi State, Texas A&M versus Arkansas in Arlington, Texas, Clemson at NC State, Iowa State at Baylor, Rutgers at Michigan, Tennessee at Florida, and West Virginia at Oklahoma. So, Ashton, what are your 5 games to watch this week?
Yeah, so mine start. I'm going to start off with the big one, kind of the slam dunk. I'm sure we'll both have it. Is Notre Dame Wisconsin neutral site game there in Chicago. That one's gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, really looking forward to that. That'll be great. Number 2 is Texas A&M and Arkansas. Huge opportunity for Arkansas here. They put themselves on the map early with the win against Texas. This year vaults them up even another step, possible top 10 territory at that point if you're going to beat a Texas A&M team. So must watch there. Number 3 is Clemson versus NC State. We circled this in the preseason. We're an NC State podcast. It hasn't worked out so well for us. But hey, Clemson is struggling right now, and we haven't been, in all fairness to us, we haven't been as quick to jump and yeah, sound all the alarm bells on the Clemson offense as maybe some other people have. There is issues there, but I'm still kind of waiting to see it. I'm going to give it a little bit more time, because Clemson's made the playoff the last 6 years, and they deserve a little bit more time. So yes, that one's a must watch. I think Clemson is right now must watch. I think you have to just try to just figure out what that is, because they're a power and a serious contender when they're right. And yeah, we just want to just check that out. That's absolutely must watch. Michigan and Rutgers. Okay, now just stay with me here. Michigan is good. Both of these teams are 3-0. This is a Rutgers team that has really turned it around. They are not the doormat that they were just a couple of years ago. So they are competent again. Michigan is rolling, especially running the football. This is a really good matchup, and we want to see if Michigan, how they handle this, how they handle success. Yeah, how does Jim Harbaugh, what does he do? He feels like he's on a really good trajectory here, especially in a questionable Big Ten year. So Michigan Rutgers, I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. Last one that I'm going to finish up with at number 5 is Missouri versus Boston College. Boston College, another zone blitz darling early in the preseason, have had a good start. They're 3-0. Phil Dracovic injured though, so yeah, we just want to see how that one's going to play out. It's not a top 25 matchup. No, neither team is ranked, but these are both very quality football teams. And in a week where there's maybe not as much ranked on ranked action as what you would like to see, this year that game there is going to be a quality game that is at the end of the year you'll look back and you'll realize that these teams were actually pretty good even though they're not ranked now. So those are my 5, and there's a few other that were kind of maybe in the running, but I think for me that those that's going to be the most interesting 5 games this weekend.
Sure, and we do agree on the first three you mentioned there: Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Clemson, NC State. I went a little bit different direction for my last two games. I have, let's see if I can find them here. Oh, yes, LSU at Mississippi State. LSU at a 2.5 point favorite. And then I also went with West Virginia at Oklahoma, the night ABC game. That one's interesting to me, mostly because West Virginia beat Virginia Tech last week and might be better than we thought they were. So what? And then we should maybe just mention, we might not preview them, but there's also Tennessee at Florida. Um, that's probably gonna that might be interesting for a half or whatever. Could be fun to watch. Texas Tech Texas Tech at Texas. That one's also interesting to me. But let's start with the ones that we talked about here. So your first game here. Well, I guess let's go in order of game kickoff time. So let's start with Missouri at Boston College. Missouri a 2 point favorite and get favored against Boston College. You mentioned Jerkovic is out. Dennis Grosel has not exactly lit the world on fire, replacing him. What are you looking for in this game? Do you think this is just a simple thing of where Boston College is just going to miss having Dracovic, or do you think they can actually still hang with this Missouri team?
Well, that's what we want to see. I think that's exactly what we want to see. With Dracovic in there, that was a really good offense for the first couple of weeks. They were putting up really impressive numbers. Now, okay, so he's probably not coming back this year. He had had a surgery on his hand, so it's that hurts a lot. We just want to see how much, because that team's 3-0 and has a fairly high ceiling in a year where the ACC is unsettled, and there's a lot of yeah. I mean, if they keep on winning games, I mean, Boston College quickly becomes a major factor in the ACC. So this year is a huge non-con, another chance for the ACC to kind of put some, just get maybe a little bit more respect back. The ACC needs to win some games. So this is all, for me, this is all about Boston College, and just seeing how they are without Dracovic. See how you mentioned Grissel hasn't looked just great. So yeah, I think that's more what I'm looking for than anything else is just to see how they respond to missing your star quarterback. How can you replace him?
So you mentioned you're more interested in Boston College in this game. Missouri did have a tight game with Kentucky last week, in a game that we thought was for third place at least in the SEC East. A bit of a slow start for Missouri. I think we both like Eli Drinkwitz and what he's done there so far. Are you concerned at all about them, or do you feel like they're going to be fine? You feel like this is still better than the bottom of the SEC team, like solidly so, and a solid bowl contending type of team.
Oh, I mean, I think they'll make a bowl. They're definitely above the lower echelon of the SEC. And yeah, so far we have, this is all going to get figured out for us. We're going to find all of this out, but come October, November. But for me, currently they're not ranked, but they're just missing out on that. So their only loss is to Kentucky here,
Yeah.
and that was a game that was tied up in the fourth quarter. So this is Drinkwitz has done a very nice job there. That hasn't started as fast as maybe we were hoping. A lot of people, there was a lot of Missouri hype in the preseason that maybe they could certainly be better in Kentucky, maybe even give Florida a run. It looks like they're lagging a little bit behind that. But this year is it's going to be a very tight game. I think it'll be very quite difficult for him, really, against Jeff Hafley, the Boston College squad that's very solid. So yeah, I mean, we are measuring Missouri, but I think their measurement stick is more going to be SEC games, if that makes sense. Whereas for Boston College, an SEC win for Boston College is huge. Like that is a landmark win for them because they haven't had many. Almost none. So that would be a bigger win for Boston College than it would be for Missouri. That's probably why I'm going to be focusing on them more.
Makes sense. Okay, Notre Dame against Wisconsin at Soldier Field in Chicago. This game has been on people's radar for quite some time. I would say both teams have probably underwhelmed a little bit relative to preseason expectations, but we're still talking about two top 20 teams here. I think Sunday when the lines dropped, Wisconsin was a 6.5 point favorite. That's now dropped to 5.5. What do you think here? Like, what does this game come down to? What do you think of this line? Just, yeah, there's lots of places you could go here. Go ahead.
Well, this line feels eerie. It's very high, isn't it? Like, I mean, Wisconsin is the only team that's playing in this game that has a loss. I know it's to Penn State, and that feels like a pretty good loss, but I mean, it was at home too. No, I have Notre Dame's gonna be one of my locks of the week. I think them getting 5.5. It's at a neutral site. This is not in Camp Randall or anything. This is gonna be a neutral site and probably a 50-50 split as far as fans go. So don't look for a huge advantage, or home field advantage at all. I don't see it. I don't see where the 5.5's coming from. And granted, I haven't seen as much Notre Dame as you have, but yeah, how is Wisconsin impressed to the tune of that to be favored by 5.5 over a team that's ranked 12th? I'm not seeing it. What am I missing here? I feel like I'm missing something.
It might be partly just because Notre Dame's weakness is the offensive line, and Wisconsin is known for good line play, both sides of the ball. I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I feel like this game is a toss-up. This is a coin flip to me, and 5.5 is pretty far from a coin flip. So I'm also on Notre Dame as one of my locks of the week. Don't feel amazing about this game, and just talking about some of the personnel. Like if you go through each position group for Notre Dame and think, stock up versus stock down compared to the beginning of the year, I think almost every position group is even or up for me. The notable exception is offensive line, significant down. And that's a big deal. That's not nothing. I'm not sweeping that under the rug. Notre Dame's defense looked a lot better this last week against Purdue, who's known for slinging the ball around. Didn't give up any big plays. I expect a really low-scoring game here. This is going to be reminiscent, I think, of the Wisconsin-Penn State game, maybe even the Georgia-Clemson game, just as far as two really good defenses that are controlling slightly less good offenses. And just, yeah, I don't know. It might be first team to make an explosive play. And if we're comparing chances to have some explosive plays, I mean, Notre Dame has Kyron Williams, Michael Mayer, Kevin Austin. They haven't always shown up in every single game, but I think I do like some of that skill position talent better on Notre Dame's side. I don't like them to put up 30 points or anything against this Wisconsin defense. I just don't think that's a reality. But this game could be 17-14. I don't know. What are your thoughts as far as where you could see this going?
Score wise, it's the same, but like for me, it's I think probably the quarterback battle. That's really interesting when
Yes.
you have two Wisconsin quarterbacks and one is now playing against him. And I will just say Jack Cohn has put up much better stats at least than Graham Mertz. You can argue all you want about who's more talented. And I'm sure people have done that. That's why one of them is gone. But Jack Cohn has thrown 8 touchdowns. Graham Mertz has not thrown a touchdown this season yet. He has a couple of interceptions, no touchdowns. So I think that's going to be the kind of the deciding factor. I will say Notre Dame has the edge in skill position players. I think all the way across the board. Running back Chaz Malusi, the transfer in from Clemson, has played well. And granted, it's only been 2 games. It's not like we have very small sample size, but he has run the ball well. Notre Dame has great backs, though. They have 2 of them that are both really good. So, and then, the tight ends and receivers, you're going to be more confident with Notre Dame's than I think of anyone on the Wisconsin team. So, for me, this feels, especially at 5.5, that's where I'm fairly confident in this, and it feels almost too easy. Like I eerily picking them, and it kind of stepping out there and just kind of making sure that I'm not getting tricked here because this feels like a layup.
I think if Notre Dame's defense had looked the same this last week as they had the first 2 weeks, where they gave up big plays in each game, I might feel a little differently. But it did seem like they've sort of figured things out. Their tackling has been a lot better since week one, keeping the ball in front of them a little bit more, and their defensive line has been very good. They're actually tied with Georgia for like fifth nationally in sacks per game or something. The flip side of that is their offensive line is close to last in the country for allowing sacks. So yeah, that to me, and that just says this is going to be low scoring. Wisconsin is the same way to me. They have an excellent defense. Really love what their defense does. And you mentioned Graham Mertz has not been very impressive, especially that opening game against Penn State. Yeah, to me, this just screams low scoring game. If we were doing whatever bets we wanted, I maybe my lock of the week would be the under on this game. I don't even know what it's at. It might just be a principal under for me.
It's at 46.5.
Yeah, that's a low number for college, and that might still not be low enough. But anyway, I'm sure we'll talk more about this game immediately afterward this coming weekend. Any more closing thoughts before we move on?
Only one of these teams has an All-American safety.
Did you see the interception Kyle Hamilton made?
I did.
He made yet another one, and that wasn't even his nicest play. He made a 4th-and-1 stop against Purdue where they ran the perfect play. They had the perfect play on 4th-and-1. It was a first down, and then all of a sudden it wasn't because the really fast, long guy got there and made a ridiculous play. They don't have just a ton of NFL talent. Clark Lee was an amazing coordinator without being an amazing recruiter, and I think their roster has, on the defensive side, has suffered a little bit for it. But Kyle Hamilton, he's the guy that erases all mistakes. So yeah, very interesting to watch. And it's not all about Notre Dame. I'm also interested to see what Wisconsin can do in this game because they still have a pretty high ceiling, I think, especially with the way the Big Ten has looked. Like this could still be a Big Ten title team, I believe. All right, LSU at Mississippi State. Mississippi State, one of those bipolar teams this year. And LSU, a little bit the same. I don't know. I had high expectations for LSU before the season. Obviously, they've underperformed, but they're 2.5-point favorite against Mississippi State. What do you like here? Obviously, last year, this was kind of Mississippi State's coming out party week one under Mike Leach. They put up 7 million points against LSU with Bo Pelini as their defensive coordinator. You expect more of the same? What do you expect out of this game this year?
No. The short answer is no. I do not expect more of the same. I will say Coach O and the staff in Baton Rouge are firmly on the hot seat right now. And this here is a game of I have to win, must win. He may not get back on the plane if he loses this game. Like it's that serious right now. It is going to be desperate from the whole coaching staff and probably that team because this is a really a must-win game. You can't lose to Mississippi State twice in back-to-back. You can't do it. You really can't do it in back-to-back years. So yes, I think that they will absolutely come out with their hair on fire. The only reason I wouldn't be picking them is because I have no reason to think that they can stop a run of any sort. Like their linebackers cannot take a correct angle, and neither can their safeties. So that's the only thing that kind of bothers me. But LSU has way more talent. Like if you're into like the blue chip ratios, any of that stuff, LSU is they're ranked in the top 10 in almost every. Their recruiting itself is crazy. Like they have Stingley and Eli Ricks, which are two of the best corners. Stingley's the best corner in the nation, and Ricks is not far behind. I have no reason to believe that Mississippi State can move the ball through the air by challenging those guys. I think they'll probably be able to run the ball, but I think LSU just has too many guys. Like they have. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think they have way too many players to give up just a ton of points to Mississippi State, especially when they kind of know what's coming a little bit. Like you've lost, you already got pounded by them last year doing this. So no, I'm not betting on this game, but if I had to, it would be a strong lean to LSU. I think the LSU is getting 2.5. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I would be leaning strongly to LSU at that number. And yeah, if I was betting, that
Well,
would be the side I would be going on.
they're laying 2.5, I should say.
Sorry.
But yeah, you mentioned the blue chip ratio. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm just not a huge fan of it necessarily for picking individual games. Um, and LSU is definitely not, I would say, equal to the sum of their parts right now. Um, and just earlier this week, I was listening to somebody talk about Ed Orgeron and the job there, the hot seat, everything, and they were like, I just don't know that you can fire him after he just won a national title. And the other guy he was talking to asked him, well, is he a good coach? And it's like he might deserve to stay, but is he a good coach? I'm not sure he's a good coach. And like that's it at LSU. If you're not getting production out of your talent, that's a problem. Not confident in this game. You sound pretty confident about LSU. I would pick them to win this game, but I could see almost any outcome. Seriously, just up to and including Ed Orgeron not having a job a week from now. But yeah, we'll find out. That's that's the fun thing about college football is sometimes there's just so many range of outcomes, and there's obviously a lot of passion that goes into those types of things, especially with a program like LSU. Any more thoughts on that before we move on?
I really hope he stays. I really hope he stays and figures it out. That was a lot of fun. The 2019 LSU team was I mean, it was the best team I've ever seen in my lifetime. I would put them up there with 01 Miami for the greatest team of all time. I mean, that team was just silly good. They beat Alabama. Like they beat Alabama. Alabama had 4 first round receivers and LSU outscored them. Like I think that was incredible. Like I no, I have a lot of strong feelings about LSU. They're frustrating. If you're a fan, you have to be pulling your hair out, and that's probably why he is on the hot seat because of losses like to Mississippi State last year or UCLA to start out this year. But I think he'll be okay. Like I really think he'll pull through. Do I have confidence in it? No, no confidence in it at all. I hope he does. I'm rooting for him.
Okay, so our next game is Texas A&M and sorry, not at Arkansas versus Arkansas in Arlington. Um, top 16 matchup here. A&M ranked number 7, Arkansas number 16. Had really good start to their season. I figured they were probably still a year away. Obviously, they are playing very well, exceeding my expectations at least, along with I think most of the rest of the country's expectations. Is this a toss-up to you, or do you feel like Texas A&M has a solid edge here? They are a 5.5 point favorite.
Yeah, LSU has an edge for sure.
A&M.
Arkansas, sorry, A&M, sorry. Texas A&M does have an edge here. No, there is no doubt. Arkansas is only a couple of games removed from being unranked and being unsure of where they are as a program. The win against Texas, while impressive, it was one game, a home game. This is not. This is neutral site. There will be more Aggies fans there probably than Arkansas. I believe I can say that with confidence. It is in Texas, so the number's 5.5. It feels really that feels about right for me. That's about probably where it should be. I don't know if I'd go more than a touchdown in A&M's direction, but 5.5 feels about right. I think we're going to find out a lot about Arkansas. Really, a lot about both of these teams. This is for A&M. This is really big as far as just from a quarterback situation. Haynes
Yes.
King. Rumors are coming out that Haynes King could be out until even longer than was first thought. Probably November, maybe December even. He's a fractured hand. That means it's broken. Like it's so it could be a little bit of time yet for Haynes King. How does Calzada do against this defense? This defense is good. They have ball hawks in the secondary. They make turnovers. They create those. Can he take care of the ball? If he does, this should be a Texas A&M win. If he does, if the ball is put on the ground, if he does make some bad reads and there's some interceptions, this becomes very interesting very quickly, and anything can happen. Arkansas will run the ball. If KJ Jefferson has a semblance of throwing the ball and gets that figured out for Arkansas's offense, they're lethal. So, yeah, absolute must watch. I think the winner here is 4-0, and probably if in Arkansas they're probably in the top 10 if Arkansas wins. And this would be really big for A&M too. A win here would put to calm, I think, all the restlessness that happened after the close game against Colorado.
Right. I do think this this is a little bit. Texas A&M is in a similar situation, I would say, to Notre Dame this year. They're both, they're undefeated. They just haven't been as impressive, and there's been closer games than people expected. And these are like preseason top 10 teams, and now you're finally playing a good team. Like you have to show up. And here, if you win a close game here, you feel a little more comfortable about your team. And for Texas A&M, especially without Calzada, in my mind, they have to try to just win this game with defense, run the ball well, hope Calzada can make a few timely throws. Yeah, to me, probably the best unit in this game will be the A&M defense. And if this game ends up 23-16 or whatever, that's kind of a weird score, but in that range, I don't know that my opinion of either team will be drastically like I'm not going to feel a whole lot lower on Arkansas, but I probably will feel better about A&M in a one score type of game like that where A&M pulls it out. Is that a fair overview or whatever? How do you view that? If A&M does win this game by a touchdown, does that do more for your opinion of A&M or Arkansas?
Oh, obviously A&M. That is clear. That would a 7 point win over Arkansas at a neutral site right now is that puts to rest a lot of just the insecurity maybe that's going around there in College Station. So you feel way better about yourself with a 7 point win against
Mm-hmm.
a number 16 team in the nation, especially after having just struggled against Colorado to even get out of there with a win. I believe it was 10-7. So yes, and then especially if the quarterback plays well, if Zach Calzada can come in and he doesn't have to throw the ball a ton, but if he's accurate and takes care of the ball, doesn't force it too much and makes smart decisions, you feel really good about your chances to come in second in the SEC West
Mm-hmm.
and possibly challenge Alabama again. I know it kind of felt like a lot of their hype kind of went down the drain with when Haynes King hurt himself, but if Calzada plays well, which I think he'll have to do for them to beat Arkansas, it all kind of goes away a little bit, I think, and you feel way better about yourself come Sunday.
Right. Okay, Clemson at NC State. Clemson a 10-point favorite, which would have probably been unheard of before the season started. I don't know what the off-season lines were there, but yeah, I mean it's well documented. Clemson struggling to beat Georgia Tech this last week. Had to have a fourth down stop at the end of the game just to win that. I don't know, like, but also NC State. I mean, the last time we saw them in a against a competitive team, they were losing to Mississippi State. What do you see here? Like, do you have any good feeling about how this game will go at all?
Ooh, no, and it's why I'm not betting on it. I don't know which side at different times. I think the line's 10 right now.
Yeah,
I have liked both sides. Like, so it just means like, I just need to stay away from that one. I have, no feel on that game at all. And how can you have a feel at all on Clemson right now with the performance, especially last week against Georgia Tech? Um, NC State is kind of the same thing a little bit. We both really thought NC State was a very solid football team and
hmm
very consistent. And to come out and just kind of get smoked against Mississippi State, who's not that great, like that's not a surprise. They're not that great. I don't feel good about NC State either. So I will say if DJ Younglele can make a lot of this better with a good performance.
hmm
I think a really good performance from him in this game kind of takes care of a lot of your problems. Kind of maybe a little bit the same deal as Texas A&M. It makes a lot of the stress go away, and you feel like the favorite that you are and should be in the ACC. Because right now with North Carolina, after that performance that they had last week, Clemson has to be feeling challenged as the number one team in the ACC right now. So I think they will. I think they'll get it figured out. I understand the offensive line issues are well documented. That was on prime display for everyone to see there in week one. I think they will figure it out. They have too much talent, in my opinion, for them not to make this work. This is an ACC game. It's going to be difficult. They're going to NC State, going to be a home game for them. So no, it will be difficult. I think Clemson wins. Not sure about whether it's more than 10 points. I think the offense does look better though.
So here's my thoughts on it, and I'm not super confident in anything about this game, but I do know one thing: Clemson's defense is legit. They still have not allowed a touchdown this season. To me, they're clearly the best unit in this game. And I don't expect NC State to be able to score maybe more than 10. Like, that might be a good game for them. So if Clemson can just, all they have to do, if they hold NC State to 10, all they have to do to cover is score 3 touchdowns. Is it asking for too much for this Clemson offense loaded with 5 stars to score 3 touchdowns?
Well, they haven't yet, at least not against anyone not named South Carolina State. So, I mean, we'll find out. Yeah, no, it shouldn't be. That should be a layup for them. That should be what they have, in the at the end of the first quarter. They should have 21 at the end of the first quarter normally in these games. And maybe they will. That's why this is must watch. I think like we have to find out. This is a test for Clemson, and it's something I think they'll pass. With flying colors. I think, but I'm not sure, and I don't have any confidence that they'll cover 10. 21 points for their offense right now feels like a lot.
Sure. And we should mention, like, this is probably Clemson's last chance in the regular season to really make a big dent in people's minds as far as like what they look like as a potential really good team. Obviously, in the ACC championship game, they would most likely have a decent opponent. Even that is not guaranteed this year with the way the ACC has been playing. But yeah, I don't know. Like, if you're Clemson, you just have to find a way to win this solidly. It just can't be in doubt, because if you beat the rest of your schedule by 30 points each, I don't know that that moves the needle a whole lot. It would a little bit, just because that meant you were scoring at least 30 points. But yeah, I don't know. Definitely must watch, just because we need to see if Clemson can play like a top 10 team, for sure. Okay, Rutgers at Michigan. Um, yeah, actually a pretty decent matchup. I had this on my short list as well. You picked it as one of your 5. Rutgers an 18.5 to 19-point underdog in this game. Michigan have done nothing but run the ball very well with great results so far. Rutgers has also played well. Like, do you expect this to be a close game? What are you looking for as the strengths of these teams? What do you want to see out of these teams in this game?
For Michigan, I would like to see maybe a little bit more balance. The run game that's been magnificent. It's been well documented. We're aware of that. I want to see just some balance. I want to see them throw the ball a little bit. I want to see how they handle success too. How does Harbaugh handle being 3-0, especially when everyone else in the Big Ten has kind of faltered a little bit, maybe with the exception of Penn State and maybe Iowa. But Michigan has surprised. Michigan has surprised, and they have impressed. How do they handle that? Rutgers is undefeated. Rutgers is not what they were 3 years ago. Take that and throw that out. That memory is gone and in the past. They are now coached by the man who got them the farthest to where they were a very competitive program. I think it was 10 or 12 years ago. He's back now, and Rutgers they have a real, there's some cohesiveness there. They're kind of, yeah, fighting again. They're competitive. They're winning football games. It's something you never would have said about them just a couple years ago. So it's a litmus test for Rutgers. If Rutgers can just keep this close, probably not going to win this game. If Rutgers can keep this close, they have impressed and they have passed the test. Michigan, how do they respond? I think a lot of this is just to watch Michigan play. That's the reason why I will be watching, to see how the quarterback play is. Cade McNamara, they feel like they have their guy. He's been efficient, but he hasn't thrown the ball just a ton. He hasn't had to, just because the run game's been so good. So I just want to see maybe some balance there from Michigan, and see how they can, because the Big Ten's wide open. The Michigan has a lot of talent. Can they continue to gel as a group and as an offense? And if they do, sky's the limit, really.
Sure. For me, I kind of want to see the same thing out of Michigan. Just, can Cade McNamara make some decent throws against Big Ten competition? They don't have to sling the ball around. The run game is working well, but you probably can't get away with running the ball 80% of the time when you're playing the better teams in your schedule. So there needs to be a little bit more proof of concept, I think, for the passing game. Then for Rutgers, just don't get blown out. Like, just make this a competitive game for at least a half, if not 3 quarters. Rutgers obviously has come a long way since Greg Schiano is back there. He's done an excellent job. I don't think any of us could have foreseen just how good of a job he's done there. Um, so yeah, is that asking too little out of Rutgers just to not get blown out, or is this a team you feel like could actually maybe surprise a few teams in the Big Ten?
Well, they can surprise a few teams in the Big Ten. I think the reason why I'm expecting I have Michigan covering 19 here. So the yeah, like I think it could be at least 3 touchdowns, probably more. That's not bad for Rutgers. Rutgers is just recently recovering from being really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
UConn bad. They're not UConn bad anymore. And to be 3-0, like that you have to win your first couple of games to really get into these games like in the latter part of September and October, where suddenly, hey, if we win this game, we can go top 25. Like suddenly the sky's the limit at 4-0. There's not many 4-0 teams left, and Rutgers probably won't get there, but you're at least setting a floor, a foundation for yeah, the coaching staff and the program as a whole. You're rebuilding it again, and doing a excellent job at it. This would be a huge opportunity if Rutgers keeps this close. There's a lot of excitement there. Yeah, just for the job that Shiano has done for sure.
Sure. Okay, none of us had Tennessee and Florida in our five. Do you have any brief thoughts on them? I thought maybe we just quickly mention that one yet.
No, yeah, I waffled on whether or not to put this one in the top five. I think the reason I didn't is just because not sure what Tennessee is yet. I will say Florida is coming off a huge emotional game against Alabama, and you just lost, and it was kind of just gut wrenching right there at the last, yeah, late in the fourth quarter, and you had a chance. And Florida historically under Dan Mullen hasn't done well after, yeah, just coming off an emotional game. They've gotten blown out several times. Missouri comes to mind when Missouri just blew the doors off of them after Florida lost a close one to Georgia. So this is a possible trap game, I think, for Florida. They're favored by 20. They're by far the better team. Heupel, first year coach there at Tennessee, but they can move the ball. Tennessee is scoring points again. So this one could get interesting. And if this game stays close, yeah, after halftime, if this is still a one-score game after halftime, suddenly the pressure goes all on Florida, and Tennessee just starts playing with house money at that point because they've already got what they came for. And so, yeah, that one could become interesting. I didn't have it there because I'm more interested in seeing Michigan. I think Michigan could possibly be more of a player later on than Florida, but we'll find out. I think it'll be interesting, but it just missed it for me. Tennessee, I just don't trust them enough yet. I think they could easily get blown out as well.
Yeah, I almost picked this game as one of my five, but I just kind of feel like Florida is going to win a boring 2 to 3 score game here. But I'm with you. Like if this game looks close in the second half, all of a sudden this becomes one of my games that I want to watch for sure. Okay, our last game here, West Virginia at Oklahoma. Oklahoma a 16 or 16 and a half point favorite, depending where you look. West Virginia, of course, upsetting Virginia Tech last week. It looked pretty good doing so. Almost gave it up at the end. The bigger story here is obviously Oklahoma and broken record here, but top 10 preseason team whose offense has not looked very, very good through 3 weeks. Do you feel like Spencer Rattler can get this back on track? Do you think this Oklahoma offense can figure it out? Yeah. They're playing West Virginia, who feels like, I don't know. It feels like they could give them a fight, but it's also probably not a legit top 20 type of team. So I don't know. Like, how much do you feel like you can actually learn from this kind of matchup?
Well, I think quite a bit especially if you're watching for on the Oklahoma side of it. West Virginia came off a very impressive win
Hmm.
against a team ranked number 15 and really kind of took them apart. That game, the final score looked closer than the game actually was. West Virginia was the better team, and it was obvious to all those that watched. So this year's a big test for Oklahoma. How does we've talked about Spencer Rattler a lot. I think I picked him to win the Heisman. He was the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman at the beginning of the year, and he's not anymore. And for all the reasons that we've talked about, he has not Yeah, the offense has not clicked as what you're the way you're used to seeing it click. So and there's still really good receivers there. So and the coaches are all still there. So it kind of all points to Spencer Rattler. So he does have the 5-star breathing down his neck. We talked about this actually in the last podcast about Caleb Williams. He needs this. Spencer Rattler needs a good game here. I think he has to have it just to stay the starter anymore, because this is Oklahoma is expected to win these games, and West Virginia is going to be a very good test. I think it could be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you. It does feel like there's been a lot of quarterbacks this year that we kind of expected to be really good, and they've sort of faded. Not a great year for quarterbacks so far. Matt Corral is one of the exceptions to that. Ole Miss is on a bye this week before they play Alabama. I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the future. But yeah, Rattler, yeah, it's weird. He was pretty good last year. He wasn't perfect, but I expected him to take another step in a positive direction, and it's been the opposite. You do have to wonder, like, if this game is 10-10 in the second quarter, like, do you consider giving Caleb Williams a drive and see what he can do? I think I would. What about you?
It just once you start, I don't know. Maybe I have a little bit of just shell shock again from pulling your starting quarterback and putting in a backup, especially when the starter hasn't been bad. Rather's stats are fairly impressive. I mean, they really are. He has 7 touchdowns, only 2 picks. He's taken care of the ball pretty well. And something here that I think the number that popped for me when I was just reviewing this game, the over under is 59 for in this game. This game should be that feels wildly low, wildly low. The number feels like it should be at 70. And especially with the Oklahoma offense that we're used to, and just we've seen it for the last 4 years really, and you think this is going to be a shootout, and this is who knows what this could be record setting as far as the amount of points scored. 59 feels crazy low, and that's a reaction. Vegas has reacted now to what they've seen, because they put up, Oklahoma put up 23 points against Nebraska, who doesn't have a very good defense. Yeah, it's concerning. It's very concerning if you're an Oklahoma fan. There's cracks in the armor, and to your point that you mentioned about kind of several different quarterbacks that we looked at in the preseason as being elite, and haven't impressed maybe as much. And I wonder maybe if some of it is kind of just a resurgent in defense, just resurgence in defenses across the country, because we've noticed better defenses being played. I think the Big 12 they've had a number of good defenses. Different teams are playing much better than it's not the 48-45 games that we saw from a couple of years ago. These are lower scoring games now. So I think some of it is that. I think some of it's the defense. But yes, no, it's inexcusable for them to put up 23 points against Nebraska.
Do you attribute any of that to, obviously a lot of the elite teams, they lost their elite players just like any other year. They went to the NFL. A lot of the teams in the 15 to 60 range in the country, they have 6th year seniors and 5th year seniors that they normally wouldn't, but they got that extra year of eligibility due to COVID. And it seems like it's helped the defenses maybe. That's maybe just my read on it. Does that make any sense to you? Just kind of the cohesiveness of defenses and just seem like they're playing better than normal? Or is that maybe just looking for an explanation for something that's just kind of weird?
Well, I mean, that could very well at least play a factor in it. For me, I think football, I think, is cyclical. I think things just kind of go in cycles sometimes, and defense was out of style. Just, the last year, last 2 years, the last 3 years, defense is not cool. And I think defense is kind of getting cool again. And I think defenses are getting better. I think the offense is adjusted and went into just this warp speed, and we're just going to score so many points that the defenses just didn't even know where to turn. And then I think they figured out, hey, we're going to rush the passer. We're going to keep hitting the passer. And suddenly he's not going to be making these throws in the third quarter if he was in the first quarter. So I think some of it's that. And I think it's a number of different factors. And some of it is the quarterback's just not playing as well as maybe they should. I think that's a factor of it too.
Sure. Okay, so we mentioned we both have Notre Dame as the lock of the week. Did you mention you have Michigan as your other lock? You may have already mentioned that. Um, I did not mention Arkansas. That's my second lock. They're plus 5.5 as well as Notre Dame. Don't love my picks this week. It seemed like a pretty tough week to pick a lock. Is that just me, or did you experience the same thing when you were trying to choose your locks?
Yeah, no, the Clemson line initially, like, it was at 10 points, and I was like, wow, NC State, like, Clemson might not even score 10. Like, but then, yeah, then you want to go on the other side. Well, Clemson's obviously going to have rethought their whole offensive scheme. And they're going to put up 45. So, no, I'm all over the place. It's been a rough week, and yeah, it hasn't even started yet. So, no, my locks, we both agree on Notre Dame covering 5.5, which feels crazy, and then I have Michigan covering the 19 points that they're favored by against Rutgers.
Okay, you heard it here first. Go make some money. We're not responsible for you losing, as always. Any more thoughts before we end this podcast here about the upcoming week?
I will say this: these are the weeks that when you expect nothing to happen and you expect it to be a down week, expect absolute chaos. It feels sneaky, like it could be one of those weeks where a lot of teams you don't expect to lose go down. So pay attention, don't fall asleep. This is one week of 12 regular season weeks that we get. We only get 12 of these every year. Enjoy each one.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks guys for your feedback on everything we've heard. Keep looking at the YouTube videos, subscribing, tell your friends, all that stuff. So, yeah, have a great week. For Ashton, I'm Vince. Love you guys. God bless.